When Glenn Hoddle hired a faith healer to work with the England national team, football fans across the country couldn't believe it. This wasn't just any appointment. Hoddle brought in Eileen Drewery, a spiritual healer who would lay hands on players' heads to fix their injuries. It was the kind of decision that makes you wonder, was this the work of a tactical genius or the beginning of a spectacular downfall? Hoddle's story is one of the strangest paradoxes in English football. A manager with one of the sharpest football brains the game has ever seen, yet a man who repeatedly shot himself in the foot with poor judgment, questionable communication, and a seemingly endless ability to create controversy. What truly derailed one of England's most promising managers? His unconventional beliefs, his oversized ego, or simply terrible decision-making? Before we dive into his managerial mishaps, it's worth remembering just how brilliant Hoddle was as a player. His sublime balance, close control, vision, and extraordinary shooting made him a standout midfielder for Tottenham Hotspur, Monaco, and England. He won FA Cups and a UEFA Cup with Spurs, plus a French league title with Monaco. His technical skills put him in a class of his own, in an era when English football valued strength over skill. But as a manager, Hoddle embodied a frustrating contradiction. Despite his clear tactical brilliance, he developed a reputation for being distant, inflexible, and a poor communicator who struggled to connect with many of his players. Hoddle's first managerial job came at Swindon Town in 1991, a club in complete crisis. They had just been denied promotion to the top flight after admitting to 36 breaches of Football League rules involving illegal player payments. The club chairman received a prison sentence, key players were sold off, and morale was rock bottom. Despite this chaos, Hoddle showed early signs of his tactical brilliance. As player manager, he introduced an innovative 3-5-2 system with himself as the sweeper. From this deep position, he would launch attacks with his exceptional passing range. The system proved highly effective. Swindon won promotion to the Premier League in 1993 with a dramatic 4-3 victory over Leicester at Wembley, with Hoddle himself scoring the opening goal. But just days after this triumph, the first red flag appeared. Hoddle abandoned Swindon Town to take the manager's job at Chelsea. Swindon fans were devastated, labelling him Judas for leaving at their moment of glory. It established an early pattern. Personal ambition would always come first. After a spell at Chelsea, where he continued to show tactical promise, Hoddle landed the biggest job in English football. In 1996, he was appointed England manager, tasked with building on Terry Venable's promising Euro '96 campaign. Initially, things looked promising. He guided England to the 1998 World Cup with a tactically disciplined performance in a crucial qualifier against Italy in Rome. His win percentage would eventually reach 60%, statistically impressive for an England manager. But then came the decision that would define his tenure and begin his downfall. Hoddle integrated faith healer Eileen Drewery into the official England setup. He had known her since his teenage years and credited her with helping him recover from injuries during his playing career. The media reaction was brutal. The team was mockingly nicknamed the Hod Squad, and Drewery's presence became a constant source of tabloid ridicule. Player reactions split the squad down the middle. Darren Anderton and Gareth Southgate found her genuinely helpful, but others openly mocked her. Ray Parlour reportedly asked for a short back and sides when she laid hands on his head, while Steve McManaman and Robbie Fowler allegedly asked if she could predict horse race winners. What happened next showed Hoddle's darker side. Reports emerged that players who displayed scepticism towards Drewery were subsequently marginalised or dropped from squads. Names like Parlour, McManaman, Fowler, and Matt Letizia suddenly found themselves on the outside looking in. Some reports even suggested Drewery influenced team selections. When your spiritual advisor is picking the team, you've got problems. Hoddle remained fiercely loyal to Drewery, even publicly stating that her absence from the World Cup camp in France might have cost England success. His personal reliance on her was highlighted when he moved into her spare room following his separation from his wife. The faith healer had become much more than a controversial support method. She was a symbol of Hoddle's growing detachment from mainstream football culture. England's 1998 World Cup ended with a penalty shootout defeat to Argentina in the second round, a disappointing but not disastrous result. What happened next, however, was entirely self-inflicted damage. Shortly after the tournament, Hoddle published Glenn Hoddle, My 1998 World Cup Story. a diary recounting the entire experience, co-authored with David Davies, the FA's Director of Communications. The book earned Hoddle around £200,000. The problem? It divulged intimate dressing room secrets and offered brutally candid criticisms of players. The diary included graphic descriptions of Paul Gascoigne's raging reaction to being dropped from the final squad, justifications for benching David Beckham, and harsh assessments of players like Matthew Le Tissier, needs more from him physically and mentally, Chris Sutton, Andy Cole, and Graham Lasso. It also revealed details about supplements used in camp and even Hoddle's own contract negotiations with the FA. The reaction was immediate and overwhelmingly negative. It was widely condemned as a serious betrayal of trust. Sir Alex Ferguson, Brian Robson, Gary Lineker, Ken Bates, and the Professional Footballers Association all publicly criticised Hoddle. Players felt deeply betrayed by the breach of confidentiality. Despite the fierce backlash, Hoddle showed no remorse. He stated his main concern was to produce a quality book that put his perspective on record and insisted there is no one to apologise to. If I felt that, I would have done it already. But the worst was yet to come. In January 1999, Hoddle gave an interview to the Times newspaper that would end his England career. Discussing his spiritual beliefs, he was quoted saying, "You and I have been physically given 2 hands and 2 legs and half-decent brains. Some people have not been born like that for a reason. The karma is working from another lifetime. What you sow, you have to reap." These comments, widely interpreted as suggesting people with disabilities were being punished for sins in a past life, created a firestorm. Disability groups, media outlets, and politicians, including Prime Minister Tony Blair, expressed outrage. Hoddle initially denied this interpretation, claiming his words had been misconstrued, misunderstood, and misinterpreted. He highlighted his previous work supporting disabled people and refused calls to resign. As pressure mounted, he eventually issued an apology, acknowledging a serious error of judgment while still maintaining his words had been twisted. But it was too late. On February 2nd, 1999, the FA announced they had terminated Hoddle's contract with regret. His England career was over. You might think this would serve as a wake-up call, a chance to reflect and rebuild his reputation carefully. Instead, in 2001, after taking charge at Southampton and steadying the ship following Dave Jones's dismissal, Hoddle delivered another blow to his already damaged image. With Southampton performing well and on course for their best Premier League finish in 5 years, Hoddle sensationally walked out on the club. He broke his contract before completing a full season to take the managerial position at Tottenham, his boyhood club. His longtime assistant John Gorman followed him to North London. The departure was far from amicable, described in reports as acrimonious and bitter. Serious accusations were levelled against Hoddle, including claims of lying and mismanagement during the process. Southampton fans were furious, especially when Hoddle later signed key Saints defender Dean Richards for Tottenham. Once again, Hoddle had prioritised his personal ambitions over professional loyalty. This exit proved particularly harmful because it occurred against the backdrop of his previous controversies. For critics, the move reinforced the image of Hoddle as potentially aloof, self-serving, and lacking loyalty. While the emotional pull of returning to Tottenham was understandable, the manner and timing of his departure caused significant reputational damage. Glenn Hoddle's managerial story is one of the great what-ifs in English football. A man with undeniable tactical brilliance who could have revolutionised how England played the game, repeatedly undermined by poor judgment, controversial statements, and an apparent inability to build and maintain relationships. His footballing mind was exceptional. His implementations of systems like the 3-5-2 at Swindon, his European-inspired style at Chelsea, and his technical focus with England all showed his progressive thinking. Players like Rio Ferdinand called him the best England manager they played under, believing his continued tenure would have made them better players. But Hoddle's career trajectory reveals a man whose greatest opponent was always himself. His perceived distance from players, his sometimes inflexible approach, his unconventional beliefs, and his poor communication consistently sabotaged his potential. From the Eileen Drewery affair to the World Cup diary betrayal, From his comments on disability to his acrimonious club exits, Hoddle repeatedly proved that tactical expertise alone is not enough. The Hoddle paradox remains one of football's most frustrating stories. A manager whose ideas about how the game should be played were advanced, but whose interactions with players, media, and the wider public repeatedly undermined his ability to implement them. A brilliant footballing mind who, through his own actions and words, never fulfilled the promise his talents deserved.